if anybody else has ever done it, then you know it can be done.
Absolutely.
So what are you dreaming about that nobody's ever done before? There's nothing new under the sun, right?
Yeah.
It's been done before.
Why not again?
And why not by you?
Welcome to Real Success Stories. My name is John Wadsworth, president of Strawn & Company Insurance. I'll be your host as we bring you exciting content featuring exceptional individuals and organizations. Throughout my professional career, I've witnessed many talented people build successful businesses and significantly impact their communities. We will now have the opportunity to bring these stories to you. We'll have the privilege of speaking with business owners and highly successful individuals who are involved in a wide variety of industries. We will see success defined in many different ways. Our guests will share their stories of how they built their businesses to reveal strategies that you can duplicate in your endeavors. We'll get to experience the human side of success as we identify the challenges and obstacles that entrepreneurs endure. We will see the thin line that separates giving up from true success. Along the way, we'll have the opportunity to speak with nonprofit organizations that are creating opportunities for success in their communities. Another goal of this program is to give these great organizations broader exposure and awareness to help continue their success. As a listener, we hope you feel encouraged to support the organizations that we feature. Through this open and honest forum, we aim to build community and foster success among all who wish to pursue their dreams. You will hear real success stories of people just like you and me. Thanks for listening, and check back regularly for new episodes. Make it a great day. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this episode of Real Success Stories. I hope that you're having a great day. I'm your host, John Wadsworth, and we're excited to welcome today's guest, Jim McBrayer, CEO of McBrayer and Associates, Incorporated. Jim, thank you for joining us today. How are you, sir?
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Thanks for taking the time to come out and sit with us for a little while. We've had a great pre-recording chat, and I think we're ready to share some good stuff with our listeners today. So kind of just to familiarize our listeners with yourself and McBrayer and Associates, tell us more about the company and what all you guys have to offer.
So we started the business in January of 2009, and there's three primary things that we do: sales training, coaching, and consulting. So the sales training, think workshops. We bring people in for 2 days. We stay with them for 12 weeks after that, but just lay out all the principles and everything. The coaching is both for executive coaching, one-on-one executive coaching, and also sales coaching, sales managers, sales reps, or even leaders. And the third thing we do is the consulting part. And even though the sales training and the coaching is our own methodology, it's our own intellectual property, we use a program called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, for our consulting.
Okay, gotcha. Certainly coming from my background in insurance, we're bombarded by insurance sales strategies, insurance sales coaches, that are really focused on us. Your program, is it strictly niche focused? Could all businesses use your services, or kind of tell us who needs what you guys offer and maybe why they need that?
If you have a sales team, you can benefit from what we do.
Okay.
We have online programs that anybody can use that really helps you get going, and that's probably the least expensive way to do anything with us.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two major niches that we work in that we feel like we can bring tremendous amount of value. One is in the construction industry,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's commercial paint contractors. Everything we do, by the way, is B2B, business to business, not business to consumer. So the one niche is the construction industry. The other niche is in the automotive aftermarket, the refinish industry. So manufacturers and distributors that sell paint to body shops. Those are our two major niches for the sales training.
Mm-hmm.
For the coaching and for the consulting, the EOS, any kind of company can benefit from that.
Okay.
But those are usually not big companies. Those are mid-sized companies, anywhere from 10 to 250 employees.
Okay. Gotcha. I don't want to oversimplify sales training with just, John, I'm training you. Here's how you go sell to people. Why is it important to train your salespeople?
So probably the main reason is there's some stats. HR Shalley has been running an ongoing survey for over 20 years. There's been like over 100,000 buyers that respond to that survey. And this is B2B buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking the question, which is, what is your main criteria that you use to choose who you're going to do business with? And so the number one criteria is not price. It's in the top four. It's number 4. product, or total solution, number one is the competency of the salesperson that they're dealing with. And it's number one, and number two is about half as impactful. So having salespeople that know what they're doing, that the buyer feels that they're competent in what they're talking about, and the process, the actual sales process, that's the main reason that you should need to have it's why it's so important. The reason you need to have a process is if you don't have a process, then you're reinventing the wheel every time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't get good at that. You got to get repetitions in. You got to have a standard from which to coach, from which to develop.
So let's talk about salesperson competency a little bit. Again, trying to avoid the risk of oversimplifying things. I think most people know whatever you're selling, you need to know your product. You need to be competent with your product knowledge, the knowledge of the service you're trying to deliver. But does salesperson competency go beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's almost a given, right? That's table stakes is you got to know your product, you got to know what you're selling. Just as important is you got to know your customer, and you've got to understand their industry and where they're coming from. That's part of what they're looking to determine whether or not you're credible. Do you understand my industry and what's going on with me? So that's, like you said, not to oversimplify.
Mm-hmm.
We try to oversimplify it just so people get it. We created if you think about a sales funnel, it's wide at the top, narrow at the bottom. Think about it. You got the top, the middle, and the bottom of the funnel. And above the funnel, you got this thing called the cloud. Well, the cloud, that's where the prospecting's happening. And there's lots of objectives that you have when you're in the cloud, but the primary objective is to get a meeting, to talk to somebody. Once you got a meeting, you're in the top of the funnel. In the top of the funnel, you need to be really deliberate about what you're trying to do in the top of the funnel. And what you're trying to do is establish that trust. And trust is a component of two things. Likability, which means you understand their industry. You're like them. People don't buy from companies, they buy from people. They buy from people that they like, and they like people that are like them. So how you can be like them is by understanding their industry. So that's one of the two things to develop trust is likability. The second thing is your credibility. That's the competency. Do you know what you're talking about? The most common mistake that salespeople make is they go right to the bottom of the funnel, and that's when you're presenting your solution. It's a big mistake. I teach it. I developed this, and I still have to catch myself. We fall in love with our solutions. I know I can help you, and so I want to show you how I can help you, but you don't know that I can help you yet. You don't trust me yet. So that top of the funnel is establishing trust. The middle of the funnel is about creating urgency, and urgency is only created when you help the customer understand what their true needs are. The old sales training was, hey, just need to ask the customers what their needs are, fix your solution to their needs. The problem with that is there's a huge assumption, and the assumption is the customer understands what their needs are, and rarely do they really understand what their needs are. If they did understand their true needs, they would have already bought somebody's solution.
Certainly.
So our job in the middle of the funnel is to become their think partner. Just help them think through that and be okay if the solution is not us. So the bottom of the funnel is when we actually present them the solution. Yeah, I equate that to a physician. When you go see a doctor, you're going to go see somebody you trust. They got all the certifications and all the diplomas and everything else. And then in the middle of the funnel is when they're asking you questions about where does it hurt? Does it hurt when you do this or whatever it may be? They diagnose before they prescribe. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the biggest malpractice that we do in sales is we're trying to prescribe before the customer knows we even try to diagnose. It's malpractice.
Yes.
So we've got to do the same thing. I think for salespeople, one of the big things that gets in their way is this idea of I got to make the sale, I got to make the sale. And take the pressure off so you don't have to make the sale. Everybody doesn't need what you're selling. So it's okay. It's more important that you maintain your integrity. If they don't need what you're selling, then don't even go to the bottom of the funnel, right? And that's how you get other referrals of people going, guys, he's honest with me.
Yeah, absolutely. When a business engages with you guys, is your program strictly focused on when the prospect is in the funnel, or do you guys also address the prospecting in the cloud and that part of the process as well?
Yeah, we take it all the way through from the lead generation, which is the cloud. Mm-hmm. How do you get the leads? What do you need to do? What do you need to say? A big part of what we do that other people in our industry do not do is we customize all the sales collateral. So from the scripting, which is not actually reading from a script, it's just knowing what you want to say, the emails that you want to send, the voicemails that you want to leave. What do you say when they actually pick up the phone, dropping in on customers and talking to them? We create that because most salespeople don't have the expertise or the time
Right.
to create it. So yeah, we take it from soup to nuts, from A to Z as it pertains to selling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Something that we often hear in our industry is that folks who struggle in our profession, a lot of time it's for a lack of prospects. And so it's even engaging in those activities at the cloud level, a lack of effort or diligence there. Really, it just defeats them from the very beginning.
Yeah, so if you reverse engineer that, so if you're seeing problems with the results, your sales are not where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You can track that back to you don't have a very strong pipeline. And if you don't have a strong pipeline, you track that back to you haven't been doing enough prospecting. You've got to have the right numbers, in the pipeline, if you will. So one of the things that we talk about is also understanding the numbers, your numbers.
Yeah.
So if you had to bring in a certain amount of revenue in a particular year of new revenue, just say it's $1 million. And if you know what your close rate is, say it's 30%,
Yeah.
then what do you need in your pipeline? Well, it's $1 million divided by 0.3,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like 1.67 million or something. It's not $1 million.
Right.
Because unless you think you're going to bat 1,000.
Right.
And you're not. Nobody does.
Never.
Right. So you got to have a lot more in the pipeline than you need. And some of what you have in your pipeline, it won't hit this year, but it will hit.
Yeah.
So one of the things we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier goes back to that most common mistake salespeople make is they're too salesy. They
Mhm.
push too soon. They go to that bottom of the funnel too soon. You got to go there. You got to ask for the sale when it's appropriate. Customers buy when, WHEN, not what. So it's finding out and being ready for them so that they will call you back, not burning any bridges if it wasn't the right timing for them.
So that you're in the right position when, as you said.
You've built that relationship. So when something happens in their life or it's time to review their policy, whatever it may be, that you're the one getting the phone call back saying, I know this guy's a person of integrity. They know what they're talking about. They may make recommendations for me, but if I'm not ready, they don't push me.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you said a couple times there was talking about the trust and integrity. And we've had that come up repetitively with guests here on the podcast. We had several episodes ago, Dave Baker from the Home Fix It Show joined us. And Dave made a very clear that one of the biggest things that both as from a customer side of things, as well as from the service provider side, is building that trust and that the rapport and doing it with integrity. Because as a customer, no one's going to want to serve you well if you don't allow them to serve you well. But then B, if you're the person providing the service, you've got to deliver. Right. And if you do that, you're going to have referrals. You're going to have repeat business with that same client, and it's all through that relationship that's based on trust and integrity in delivering what the client actually needs.
Right. So when you break that down even further, John, like as a salesperson, how do you do that? Mm-hmm. And so I ask that question a lot of times when I'm sitting down with potential clients. I've never had anybody push back and say, I don't think trust and integrity is not important. But the question is, how do you do that? It goes back to process and having a system. How do you do that? And where they typically go is anecdotal. Let me tell you about a time I did it. It's like, I'm not asking you about a time that you did it. We've all done it before. I'm asking you how you're going to do it next time. And if you can't lay that out for me, here are the 4 steps I'm going to do, then you don't have a process to do that. Mm-hmm. And it takes you a lot longer than it should. If you understand what you're trying to do, establish the trust, and you know how to do that. For example, one of the things that we talk a lot about are, we call them VBRs.
Okay.
A VBR is a valid business reason that a buyer would want to meet with you.
Okay.
So you use that in your prospecting when you're saying, hey, these are the things I'm going to talk to you about. It can be things like market intelligence, what's actually going on in the marketplace. So you're kind of fishing with that. That's the bait. And they go, yeah, I'd love to know about what that is. When at the meeting, you have to deliver on that. So, we're called sales representatives because we represent the company. And whether it's right or wrong, people judge us to say if the sales process is really buttoned down, well, the rest of whatever I'm buying must be pretty, but it's not necessarily true, but that's the way the brain works, right?
Certainly. So
when you have that button down, you've got good bait, things that they would be interested in talking to you about, and you're able to lay that out for them. Mm-hmm. I mentioned one's market intelligence. Another one's something that we develop is called a capabilities briefing. So a capabilities briefing is, and I'm just going to be a hip pocket resource for you to tell you about the things that we do. I'm not trying to sell you anything. If you ever need us, you're not looking for somebody. We were just talking about somebody that was in need, either a plumber or somebody, because they had a big water damage thing going on.
Right.
That's not when you want to be trying to look for people, especially people you don't have a relationship with.
Absolutely.
You want to have a go-to person. And so when you explain that to people and say, I just want you to know what we do in case you ever need us. We already have a relationship and you know who to call.
Mm-hmm.
And that just lowers the wall for people. There's other things we're going to do on that very first sales call, which that's the top of the funnel, is delivering on what you promised. We want to get to the point that when you leave that initial sales call, that the buyer is saying, I've been willing to pay for that meeting because they brought me so much value of what, what's going to help me.
Yeah.
But also in that first call, you want to move to the middle of the funnel. The middle of the funnel, I'll say, is urgency. We call it discovery. It's asking questions. And we teach our clients how to stack questions. We have a process for stacking these questions.
Okay.
Which, we hear in the movies all the time is if you're a trial attorney, never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Right.
We do that all the time in sales. It's okay.
Of course. Yeah.
I don't know the answer, and I'm not trying to make up the answer, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole you and trick you into something. I just need you thinking about these types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And as an expert in the industry, we know where to look. We know the questions to ask. Doesn't mean it's a problem for them, but that's how you extend that trust. Is like this person, that competency is like, he's asking all the right questions. It may not be a problem for them, but it's like they're able to have a conversation with somebody that really helps them, because usually they can't find anybody like that. The other professional services they talk to is maybe their accountants, financial advisors, even legal advisors. They probably don't really understand their business. They understand business, but not their industry. And as a salesperson, you have to understand your customer's industry.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thinking through what you described there, something that really struck me is I'm on board with sales is where you'd want to do this first, because sales drive the organization. If they're not driving the organization, you probably don't have a healthy organization. But the way you described being intentional and having a process, being able to document that process and repeat that process, that level of organization, I don't think it's limited to sales.
No.
I think any business owner, any department manager, regional manager, whatever position you may be in where you're leading a team, taking those same organizational tactics of building out your process, defining it, repeating it, it just makes everything run so much better.
You're spot on. And that's where the EOS comes in, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Mm-hmm.
So the EOS, we work with leadership teams.
Okay.
So it's usually, if there is an owner, there's the president, and whoever is on that leadership team, usually it's 3 to maybe 7 or 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
We help them in 3 areas. The first one is what we call vision. The second one we call traction. And the third one's healthy. So vision is just getting everybody pulling in the same direction and knowing where we're trying to go.
Yeah.
Everybody in that leadership team has a vision, but it may not be the same vision. And so getting that, like, where's where we're going? Traction is about the accountability and discipline, to your point, not just in sales, but in every function. Mm-hmm. These are functional lead or department heads or whatever you want to call them. And the third part of that is about being healthy as a leadership team. So the idea about being healthy is being open and honest, not worrying about, well, if I say this, I'm coming across as negative, so I just won't say anything. That's not healthy. Or I don't want to say anything because that's John's area and John's going to get defensive. That's not a healthy leadership team. Mm-hmm. So we help leadership teams get healthy, get on track with their vision, and then get the traction going. The idea is, as the leadership team goes, well, there goes the rest of the organization. And then eventually you push that out throughout the entire organization.
Okay, gotcha. That's awesome. Jim, I've known you for several years and know a little bit about your background, and I think our listeners would appreciate this part of your story, which is your transition from your first career to McBrayer and Associates. So share that story with us, if you don't mind.
Yep. So corporate America, I work for PPG Industries, a great company. They kind of raised me, if you think about in the business side of things. So I went to work with them in my early 20s
Okay.
as an entry-level salesperson. So I'm from Hampton, Georgia, grew up, went to Henry County High School, graduated in 1981. And my first job was in Toledo, Ohio. So I had never met anybody north of the Mason-Dixon line. My first day on the job, my hair froze. I didn't know that was a thing.
Country come to town.
That's right. So I was in corporate America for 21 years. And throughout that time, friends and family would ask, PPG is the largest paint manufacturer in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they're big, Pittsburgh Paint, Glidden, they own lots of different brands.
Okay.
And so they're asking me, how do you like working for corporate America? I knew what they were getting at, politics and that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just a good fit here because I like it. I like working for PPG. And during the recession, when the recession hit, so being in the paint business, we had different segments. We had commercial, industrial, and one of our segments was residential repaints, think about painting your house, but also residential new construction, home starts.
Mm-hmm.
So in the paint world, in the construction industry, our business did not slow down when in the recession. It stopped, right? It just like overnight, it stopped. So when that happened, of course, that spooked everybody,
right?
And PPG did what any smart company would do, and that was they pulled in the reins.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really loved about when I was at PPG was I was responsible for a third of the country. So I had a lot of autonomy, and we were being very successful. And that's the part I realized that I really enjoyed. They had to reel that back in, and when they reeled that back in, that wasn't fun for me anymore. So they didn't change. The company didn't change. I think as you get older, you want different things. And if you listen to the good Lord, he's trying to tell you something. And he was whispering in my ear, and then he was shouting in my face, and then he was pushing my back. I thought I knew what I was supposed to be doing, which involved leaving PPG. I had a great job at PPG. They treated me great. When I left PPG was my first customer. They put me in business.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the kind of the relationship there. But I just knew that there was something else that I was supposed to do. So when I decided to make that leap, and it's easy to leave when things are bad, but when things are good, and they were real good, financially and all that was good. But I'm going to make this leap to this uncertain thing of starting my own business, and I don't know how that's going to work. I told a lot of my friends at PPG after I left, I was like, I'm just telling you that I've left. I gave my notice on me leaving, and they would say, are you crazy? Are you stupid? And then they'd go to, are you sure it's going to work? And the answer was no. No, I'm not sure it's going to work, but I'm sure I'm not supposed to stay. That I'm sure of. And sometimes you have to kind of head down the hallway. You think you're heading for the end door. There's things you can't see until you get going down that hallway. Okay. And you'll see things will appear. So for 14 years now, this has been the right path. It's evolved over time. Yeah. And we started off just doing sales training. I was telling you earlier, we started off doing just sales training. And if you looked at our business year over year, it's like, man, Jim, this is working great. Good, steady growth, real good growth. It's like, yeah, but it wasn't like that throughout the year. It was kind of, it was all we could do or we didn't have anything. There's 3 different kinds of revenues. Think about this. This will help a lot of the entrepreneurs, I think, listening out there. And they have different values. So the best revenue you can have is what we call recurring revenue.
Yes, absolutely.
You can count on it's coming in every month.
Yep.
At that time, I didn't have any of that. The second best is what you call repeat business. They'll hire you again. Mm-hmm. Paint contractors running that all the time. I painted your house, painted your building, and you'll call me back in a couple of years and these get painted again. That's second best. The third best are projects. So projects are just kind of a one-off. So I was talking to an insurance agent, and we were having this discussion, and I was asking, because you see commercials all the time on insurance. Yeah. So I'm thinking people are switching all the time. We call it churn rate. Yeah. So you tell me about what's the churn rate for an average agency? How much of your business do you lose each year as a percentage?
If you look across the industry, you're probably looking, give or take, a couple percentage points, 10%.
Yeah. So that's kind of what he was telling me. He said about 4%. Like 4%. He goes, was that good or bad? I said, I got 100% churn rate. So every year I start all over and I build it back up. But that'll work yourself to death. I had an epiphany, and it happened. I had about 3 different customers that I'd done sales training for that reached back out to me and said, hey, listen, we got a really good ROI on what you did for us working with the sales team. But there's certain individuals I want you to work with one-on-one. Would you do that for me? Coach them. Yeah. And that's what I did when I was at PPG. It's like, yeah, sure, I'll help you out. I'm thinking I'm helping them out. I've been doing it for a few months, and I realized all of a sudden I've got recurring revenue. This is pretty good. I like this. So I developed the program, put some sales collateral behind it, went out and built that business really well. A few years after that, the same customers are coming back and saying, hey, we really like what you're doing one-on-one coaching our sales people or our sales managers. We want you to sit on our leadership meetings.
Okay.
And kind of consult with us. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I can help you or not, but I'll sit in and see if I can help. And so I was helping them. I felt like I was really bringing them value. My challenge at the time was, how do I continue to bring them value?
Yeah.
So I want to always stay out in front of them so they know I got more to bring you, And again, I had about not the same three, but three customers in about a 6-week period that I was sharing something with them in consulting, and they said, that's the EOS stuff, right, Jim? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. At that time, I'd never heard of EOS. You go, that book, Traction by Gino Wickman, I never heard of it. They said, you didn't get that from them? I'm like, I stole it from somebody, but I didn't steal it from him, right? So I went and read the book, and then they got a lot of online free material that you can use.
Yeah.
And so I started using their free material, and a lot of those customers said, we really like this. They didn't call it this, but EOS calls it delivering it pure.
Okay.
So I've been a professional EOS implementer for a while now, bringing it to my clients. So that's kind of the third leg of the stool, from the sales training to the one-on-one coaching. So, like I said before, that one-on-one coaching is not just sales. I do that with executives as well.
Okay.
And then the last part is the EOS, the leadership part.
Awesome. Well, let's kind of look back to those first few years post PPG. So what were some of the challenges that you faced at that time? And, maybe what were some of the things that either you could have done differently had you known, or what were some of the solutions you found that enabled you to overcome some of those challenges?
I would say the biggest challenge that I think almost all entrepreneurs run into, and it was true of me as well, or challenge or crisis, right? So somebody gave me a Mark Twain quote a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to murder it, but it was something along the lines of, in my lifetime, I've had, literally thousands of crises, and a couple of them were actually true. So you get this head trash going on of, there's a crisis happening, and that can paralyze you. And I probably the best advice, if I could go back 14 years and give myself some advice now, kind of going through this, is it's not necessarily about having the best idea or having an idea that nobody else has ever had before. You don't have to have an A+ idea. Probably a B- or a C+ is good enough, but you got to execute it in A+.
Yes.
So it's not a matter of I got to create something nobody has ever created before. Say, what does the market need? What does it want? How are you going to deliver it? And then how are you going to stay with it so that it doesn't get to be part of that head trash? Every year I hire a consultant or a coach to help me. A couple years ago, I hired a guy by the name of David Bayer. So I want to share with something that he shared with me. I'm one of those kind of guys that, like, if I read a book and I walk away with one idea that I use, it was worth reading the book.
Absolutely.
Or if I go through a 12-month program and I walk away with something that I can really... So David's claim to fame, if you will, is he is the guru for entrepreneurs in terms of mindset. So he focuses on mindset. And what he teaches is called the 5 drivers. So for most of us, we're looking at the 5th driver and kind of working in reverse, and that's our results. I learned the hard way a few years ago in the Medicare, in the hospital industry, right? There's 2 types of problems. There's acute and chronic. So my simple definition is acute is painful and present. Chronic is the underlying cause.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing in sales or any kind of business. You have acute problems and you have a chronic. Most of us don't do anything until it becomes acute. So kind of going back to the 5 drivers, we look at the 5th driver, which is what are the results? Are we getting the results that we want? And if we're not, then it's an acute problem. If we are getting okay results, that does not mean that you're problem free. So the 4th driver are the actions that you're actually taking. So the actions, whatever results you're getting in life right now, whether it's your business, whether it's your relationships, your health, your fitness, your finances, or whatever it is, you're perfectly aligned to get those results. What you're doing will give you those results every single time. So if you're not getting the results you want, then it's the actions, and you control your actions. But now kind of going all the way back to the first driver and kind of filling in the gaps here. The first driver is your beliefs. So we all have a belief system. Everything that you've ever experienced in your life is stored in the brain.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's in your memory. Doesn't mean you can remember it. The example that I would give is a 60-something-year-old man. He's at a family reunion and he sees his great aunt, and he's talking to his aunt, hadn't seen her in decades, and somebody walks up with a German Shepherd, and it freaks him out. That's a big old dog, and he tells his aunt, he goes, "I'm afraid of dogs." And she says, "Well, of course you're afraid of dogs. You saw your cousin get mauled when you were just a toddler." And he says, "Oh, I don't remember that." He says, "Doesn't matter if you remember it or not. Your brain stored that, and you're scared of dogs." Now, somebody else could have seen the exact same thing and then turned into a vet. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying, but that's what shapes us. Whether you watch a movie, read a book, friends tell a story, that shapes us. That's our belief system, and most of our belief system is not at a conscious level. Okay. It's at a subconscious level. So in other words, it's not in your memory, but it has shaped what you like. So from the belief system, something happens that triggers us, right? That a dog walks up. And when that dog walks up, we start thinking. And whatever we start thinking, that's the second driver, our thoughts. Our thoughts lead to our emotions. It makes us feel one way or another. You think of it simply, it either empowers us or it disempowers us. Okay. And so that emotion leads to those actions that you take or those actions you don't take, which leads to the results that you get or you don't get, which reinforces that belief system. And you start that whole vicious cycle again. So here's the 2-millimeter distinction that changes all that. When you realize that beliefs are decisions, you want a different outcome, you make a different decision. And you may not believe it at first, but you have to look for evidence that it's happening. My parents were not from the Great Depression, but their parents were. Okay. And so those values were passed on, and that's true for a lot of us at my age or my generation. We didn't go through the Great Depression, but it was instilled in us that you never quit a job until you got the other job, and you live beneath your means, and you save money, right? So those coming from principles, those are learned beliefs that we have. When I left PPG, I told my dad, I said, "Hey, I'm leaving PPG. I didn't think he was going to like that." And his comment back to me was, "Before PPG, I worked for Delta Airlines, and growing up in Hampton, Georgia, if you had a job at Delta, you were set for life."
Absolutely.
So I'd been on the job at Delta for about 3 months, and I'd asked my boss's boss, he was like a superintendent or something. There was an entry-level position for marketing, and I asked him, "How do you post for that?" And I didn't know what posting was, right? How do I put my name in the hat for that job? And he laughed. And I didn't laugh. And he goes, "Oh, Jim, I thought you were kidding." It's like, why would I didn't know it was the chief marketing officer. I thought it was an entry-level position. He goes, "Well, it is. But at that time at Delta, it was all about seniority." He told me, he said, "You got to be in this job for like 10 years before you can even bid on a job like that." Oh, wow. Before he even finished the comment, right, I already made the decision, I'm leaving Delta. I'm going to have another job before I leave. That's how I got in the paint business. I went from Delta to the paint business. And I told my dad that I was leaving Delta, and he didn't say anything. That was many decades ago. But you fast forward 2 decades later, I was at PPG for 21 years. When I told him I was leaving PPG to start my own business, he said, "When you told me you were leaving Delta, I thought that was the dumbest thing I ever heard." He said, "It worked out great for you." So his belief system was my belief system was different than that. My belief system, I grew up playing ball, baseball, football, and everything else. And that was based on merit. And I felt my belief system was, if I can outperform everybody else, I'll do really well, I'll get promoted, I'll make a good income, those type things. Henry Ford, the Model T, right? He once said, "Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't." You're right. That's it. Yeah. So I think that's the thing about starting a business and making that jump more than anything else, is understanding that where you notice it first is in the emotion. And usually it's fear. And so people feel this emotion. You feel it physically. It either it's in your chest, my chest is tightened up, or my stomach hurts, or whatever it may be. And you've got to track that back to the belief system and say, what is it that I'm believing that's making me feel this way? Because whatever it is that makes me feel this way, it's not true. So what's the decision that is true? And once you figure that out, it's like, okay, now have you made, then you look for evidence for that. There's a part of the brain that's called the reticular activating system, right? So a big fancy word that's just a filter that basically says your brain is a search engine, and whatever you're putting in the brain It doesn't know whether it's good or bad. It's just showing it to you.
Okay.
So if you're putting in your brain, hey, prospecting works, that's fantastic, you're going to see that showing up. If you're putting in your brain like people are going to get upset with me, they're going to get mad with me, you're going to see that as well, either through other people talking or from your own experiences. This was true. I bought a truck a few years back. I bought an F-150 and it was platinum white. Nobody had a platinum white F-150, right? It's just like a creamy white color or whatever. As soon as I decided that's what I wanted, guess what, John?
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. It's like everybody's reading my mind. No, that part of the brain showing it to me.
Right.
Before I wasn't looking for it. Well, this is subconscious, but I'm telling you that's the most powerful part of the brain is that subconscious part.
Your brain kind of works like Facebook. The last thing you thought about or you shop for starts showing up everywhere.
That's exactly right. It's powerful. So you have to be careful what you're putting in your brain and how you talk to yourself. So, don't beat yourself up too much. And kind of going back to what I was getting at, the advice as an entrepreneur is when it feels like a crisis, you're feeling that emotionally. Track that back to what's making you feel that way. Yeah. And it's usually just, as Mark Twain said, it's a non-issue. But in your head, it's about to blow up, and you've got to be able to manage that.
The idea of how so much is based and starts with your beliefs and the effort, being intentional about analyzing your beliefs and making an intentional decision to change beliefs. That's a fascinating rabbit hole. I can only imagine how much time we could spend on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really a kind of a fascinating topic.
So the kind of the way that works in the real space is once you make that decision, you're looking for evidence to support your decision. So if the mentality, especially now with inflation and everything that's happened the way it is money's hard to come by. Money's hard to come by.
It's going to be hard to come by.
It's going to be hard to come by.
Yeah.
But if you start saying, people are there's money everywhere, and then all of a sudden you find some change in the couch, right? Or in a pair of pants you hadn't worn in a week or two, and there's a dollar bill, and there's like people throwing money at you. It's coming from everywhere. And it gets back to that belief system where you start thinking differently. And the thinking is, I know where I want to go. I got the vision of where I want to go. Now it's just a matter of what's the best way, the shortest way for me to get there. It's undisputable that I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when and how I'm going to get there. What's the route I'm going to take? And one of the best ways to do that and to help with the brain is, has anybody ever else done it? If anybody else has ever done it, then you know it can be done.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what are you dreaming about that nobody's ever done before? There's nothing new under the sun, right? That's what the Bible tells us. It's been done before.
Yeah. Why not again?
And why not by you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Something you briefly mentioned a couple minutes ago, especially, if we happen to have maybe some parents listening who have kids that maybe want them to specifically listen to what I'm about to ask you, is your involvement in team sports growing up and even post youth sports, staying involved in baseball the way you did. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how team sports influences you to this day with team building, with your business, and so on.
That's a great question. So I was playing organized sports before I was in school. And I got a lot of coaches that just off the top of my head, just from Little League in Hampton, from my dad being my first coach, to Rodney Whaley, Tommy Dodgen, John Tomasello, Harold Jones, Carlos Ray, Bill Dodgen, better known as 410, Don Overstreet. All these guys really helped mold me. When I was in graduate school, I remembered about this brand new concept about envisioning things, right? And envision what you want. And as we're going through this, and there's a new concept, I was thinking, Tommy Dodgen taught us that when we were 8 years old. You're playing shortstop, and he's saying, "Okay, Jim, if it's hit to your man on first, and less, one out or less, and the ball's hit to your backhand side, what are you going to do with it? If it's hit to your forehand side, what are you going to do with it?" And envision the play before it ever happens, and envision it successfully, right? Not of having any kind of failure or anything like that. So I think that envisioning of what you want, not what you don't want, goes back to the search engine of the brain. Don't envision what you don't want, because that's exactly what you're going to get. We always call that just being mentally tough. The team aspect of that, I think, was one of when the whole team's pulling in the same direction, you got somebody to celebrate stuff with, and you're pulling for your teammates, and they're pulling for you, and they're pulling for you. and being part of something bigger than you is really important. But those life lessons from, you get knocked down. In football, if you're carrying the ball, you're going to get knocked down. You get back up. That's not the end of it.
Right.
I think it was Rocky in one of the Balboa movies and said, failure is not getting knocked down. It's getting knocked down and getting back up. It's how many times you can get hit.
Right.
And get back up.
Yeah. How many times can you get hit and get back up? Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the team sports. It gets everybody kind of pulling in the same direction. And a lot of times you're able to help out your teammates. I was talking to a client that I was coaching this morning. It's easy to help somebody else with their problem, even if you have the same problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what teammates are really good for is, if you're lacking that confidence that you can't catch up with the fastball and they're going, this guy's throwing 88 and you hit the guy last week who's throwing 95. Like, why are you lunging at the ball? Why are you doing? They can see it and they can kind of help you through it and kind of come to your aid. So I'm a big proponent in Little League and Boy Scouts and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, but before we wrap things up, is there anything, on the horizon or new that's happening with McBrayer and Associates that you'd like to share with the listeners?
For the audience, I mentioned there's 3 major things that we do. We do the sales training. We also do coaching, whether it's for an individual sales rep, a sales manager, or an executive. And then we're doing the EOS. And go to our website, just look around, see if there's anything that interests you there. It's McBrayerandassociates.com, A&D, McBrayerandassociates.com. And, see if there's anything there that we have an online program. If you want to kind of test us out, you can buy into the online program, or at least we can send you a sample of it so you can see what the training's like, give you some ideas, things that most people that do what we do are not talking about. Most people are thinking about sales training, they're thinking about the movie Glengarry Glen Ross when they're coming in. It's like you just gotta jump all over, and we're not that way. It's like how do you help people help themselves, and it's not by pushing them. It's about really getting the integrity straight of, I'm trying to help somebody. I'll make a living in doing that. And this person doesn't need my help. I got enough integrity to walk away. And if they do need my help, I'm going to try to persuade them to kind of go with it. And if they're not ready, that's okay as well. So that, I think, are the main things that is happening to McBrayer and Associates right now. I'll leave you with this one other thing we're doing. Our business development's been so strong that we're kind of busting at the seams. So our next big move is hiring some other people to deliver, the things that I'm delivering right now.
Awesome.
I'm the only one doing it now, so we got to get more people doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Build out about your sales and consulting team. So that's awesome. Like you said, folks can find you at McBrayeransAssociates.com. That is A-N-D, not an ampersand in there. Any other social medias, anything else folks should know about?
LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. And if you're a professional and you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be. But you can find me on LinkedIn, send me a connect. And if you want to talk about your business, whether it's your leadership team or your sales team, probably LinkedIn's the best way. Or you can get in contact with us on the website as well.
Awesome.
Or you can email me, Jim@McBrayerandassociates.com.
Excellent. And if you look below the posting on the podcast, you'll see, folks, that we've included all of Jim's links and contact info for you. So feel free to click through to the website, to the LinkedIn, connect with Jim, his program at McBrayer and Associates. They've got a lot to offer, and you'll be better for it. So, Jim, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, for taking time out of your day to come up here in the evening during dinner time and spend some time with me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, John. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, be sure to share our podcast with others. The more listeners we get, the more it helps us out, the more it helps our guests out. If you have an organization that you'd like to have us feature, please let us know. If you would like to be a guest on the program, please reach out to me. We always glad to share stories with as many folks as possible. So thanks so much for listening. Join us again next time. We'll have some more great guests to share with you, and we hope you make it a great day.